Have you ever gone through a hard time and just had that feeling of loneliness, of being shunned, of feeling a certain amount of isolation, that nobody just understands what I'm going through? With everything that I'm doing, I just have no backing behind me, and it just makes it all that much harder. I would be able to get out of the situation if I just had that shoulder to lean on, and unfortunately I don't have it. Similar to, let's say, a husband who's been working on himself. He had certain issues in the past. He had an anger problem. He was a certain amount of a complainer, what we call bikorti, or he has problems with his chinuch, and he's been working over and over again on himself, that he needs his wife to go ahead and give him a little bit of backing, a little bit of praise, a little bit of understanding for the progress that he's doing, even though he falls sometimes. But if she's there and only catches him when he messes up, if she catches him every time he falters, then he's never going to have any fuel to continue. He's not going to be able to know how to move to the next step. We all have that emotional need to be able to have someone behind us, not to be on our own. To be able to continue and move on to the next step, we need someone behind us to give us that push in the back to be able to do it. It's oh so important. And here we have it. We are in Tafshin Pei Daled in 2024, and we've been going through a very difficult war that we've been going through. You know, the Arabs have always been the big bully. They've always been pushing us around. They've always hated our guts. They've always lied. They've always killed us. They've always terrorized us. And they've always done all the problems. And, you know, it doesn't really bother us so much. We know it's a fact of life. It's just the way it's supposed to be. Yishmael was our big brother from the past, and he's still our big brother, trying to abduct us and take advantage of us. We're a little bit used to it. But suddenly we are privy to a new phenomenon. Suddenly we are privy to some new concept that's not completely new, but something that just took a different level. And that's this level of everybody being against us. Of course, we've always known this phenomenon that we call anti-Semitism, but suddenly we're in a situation where everyone is just on our backs. There's nobody who likes us. Every time we try to protect ourselves, they'll scream at us instead of them. Every time we get rid of a few of them, and on the process we get rid of one of two of what we call quote-unquote innocent people. We all know how innocent they really are. Suddenly everyone's screaming at us, everyone's saying you're ruthless, you're incorrect, stop the war, just give it up, you're not doing anything anyways, just let Hamas live. And it's not just a feeling of physical abuse, of being pained physically and knowing that we're in big trouble living here, but it's a lot more, especially living in this country, feeling a certain amount of emotional loneliness, just a certain amount of solitude, just being shunned by everyone. Nobody likes you. They don't want you around. Don't you know that it's over? Goodbye. We're just not interested. And if I could say even more than just the physical problem, like I said before, it's an emotional stress. It's something that could really put us in it could really get back on us. It really can hurt us. And it could put no lack of interest to continue. It puts away a certain place. And why is that happening to us? Why does Kadosh Baruch Hu give us to such an extent? We've always had pogroms, but why to such an extent does Kadosh Baruch Hu do these things? So the answer lies in the fact that we just finished Lag BaOmer, and we know the famous story of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. I don't have to go through the Gemara and Shabbat that we're also familiar with. But there is something to point out about Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. You know what? He was also lonely. He sat in a cave for 13 years. Baruch Hashem, he had a son with him. There was no one around. When he ran away from the Romans, he didn't even tell his wife where he was, in reverence that maybe they would take advantage and make sure that she would tell them where he is. So she didn't even know where he was. Nobody knew where Reb Shimon Bar Yochai was. 13 years, there was a big sign in the post office that said, "Wanted, dead or alive," with a picture of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. He was a man who was wanted with a big ransom on his head. Anybody would love to get a hold of him and turn him into the police. Wow, they would get a tremendous amount of money. Now, of course, that's a scary feeling. It's a feeling of awe, of yira, of fear. That's something that we wouldn't want to have. But even more than that, it's a lot worse than that. It's a feeling of emotional loneliness, of solitude, of just a certain feeling of just being shunned. There's nowhere to turn, no one to talk to, no one to do anything. And it's a certain amount of an emotional abuse, if I could say, an emotional strain that was on Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. Not only that, we know when he was there in the cave, Baruch Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu did him a tremendous favor. And he did a miracle, an open miracle. He made a river of water, and he made a carob tree, so he'd be able to eat and drink for 13 years. But be'emet, as I saw some of the Mefarshim ask, carobs? Couldn't you think of something a little bit more original? If you're already doing a miracle, let some watermelons grow out of the ground. Oh man, just a few pears, maybe a few apples, some sweet apples, something a little bit luscious like a peach or a plum. Carobs, how does it? I almost can throw up from the feeling in my stomach of carobs for 13 years. Even eating carob trees just stam like that. It's painful. But for 13 years, can't imagine what a person should go through. Not only that, the Gemara over there in Shabbat Lamed Gimel adds another factor, which is less known, and that is, as we know, Reb Shimon Bar Yochai was buried in the sand for 13 years. He wanted to save his clothing, so they shouldn't wear out over 13 years, which he would only wear them on Shabbat. So during the week, he would stay buried in the sand, in order that he would be able to keep its stamina. And believe it or not, it says over there afterwards, when he was trying to shower himself, wash after the 13 years was up, he was in excruciating pain, full of cuts and bruises, and his whole body was riddled with a tremendous amount of all these strains of blood going all over him, and it really hurt him just to shower, just to soap himself up, and he was in excruciating pain. Ad Kedei Kach, until his father-in-law, Reb Pinchas ben Yair, the great Reb Pinchas ben Yair, said to him, "Oy li shereticha bekach, I feel so bad to see you like this, Reb Shimon. I feel so bad to see you like this. After all this you went through, and here I have to go ahead and see you going through such strain." So it sounds like Reb Shimon Bar Yochai went through a similar situation to the one we were speaking about before. Also, this feeling of isolation, of difficulty. So what's the answer? Why did he go through it? So Reb Shimon already answers the question for us. The great Reb Shimon Bar Yochai answers the question over there. You know what he responded to his father-in-law? He said, "Ashrecha sheritani bekach. Happy are you that you were able to see me. Shilmalo l'reitini bekach loy bikach. Because if you didn't see me like this, you wouldn't have seen me to what I became." 13 years he was in the Ma'ara. Beforehand, the Gemara says that Reb Pinchas ben Yair that every time Reb Shimon Bar Yochai would ask a question, Reb Pinchas ben Yair could answer 13 answers to Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. After he came out of the cave, every time Reb Pinchas would ask a question, Reb Shimon Bar Yochai answered 24 answers, connected the 24,000 Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva. He was able to answer much more. His Yediyas Torah was incredible, and of course we know the great light that was given to us, the great Or Zohar. The Zohar, from the Lashon of Zohar, is a beacon of light that was given to us, the power of the Kabbalah, that we were able to be transferred from generation to generation. I spoke about it in a separate shir, but that came only through the power of the cave, of the isolation, of the separation. He became a funnel, a sponge, a kli mekabel, a receptacle to be able to receive this Torah, which a normal human being would not have been able to receive. The fact that he separated himself from everybody else, the fact that he put and geared himself only to one direction, to one place, and that was to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He made himself into a receptacle that was able to receive things that no man will ever be able to receive again, that no man would be able to reach such heights, and that only became because of this tremendous connection that he was able to make with the HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So to speak, and with this we finish, it was a yichud that he had with Hashem. He was mityached with Hashem. When a person wants to have a relationship with a spouse, there's a yichud that we need to have. That's how we make the bond. You have to have an individuality between the two. Nobody else, no noise from outside, no listening to all the styles and the sports and the communication and all the news that's going on outside. No other interests except for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, except for when you make that relationship with your spouse. When you make that connection, that's the way that you build a kesher. Just like the Torah was given. The Torah was given on Moshe Rabbeinu 40 days, just him and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, with nothing else. 210 years of oppression, 40 years with no food, no drink, just him and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That was the Torah Shebechtav, Torah Shebal Peh, and here we have the Torah Shebesod. The Torah of Kabbalah was given to Reb Shimon Bar Yochai as a yichud that happened when he had that special individual relationship with Hashem in the Ma'arah. And who else? None other than, who is the man of Tefillah? When we speak about the Torah, but what about the man of Tefillah? All of Tehillim was written by our great David HaMelech. 26 years he was shunned by his family, all alone by himself, out in the woods, and what did he do? He composed the whole entire Tehillim. He was able to put together all the tefillot, the relationship, the connection that we have with the Kadosh Baruch Hu, and again, it comes from all the same place. You want to make a new Bria Chadasha, you want to make a metamorphosis, you want to make yourself into a transformation that we never had before. Sometimes we need to be what we call in b'didut, in isolation, in separation. Why? In order just to build that kesher with the Kadosh Baruch Hu, to be able to relate and connect to Hashem. And that's the answer to our question. Baruch Hashem, Hashem put us in a situation that, yes, here in Eretz Yisrael, we're all alone. I don't even know if you feel it as much in America as we feel it here. But you feel this connection perception that it's just us. Everyone's against us. Every time we do something, this, even America, the Blinken and all these funny people, everyone's just getting and screaming at us from left to right. And it only comes because of this Ratzon that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to be just us and Him. But when we have that, that will be the beginning of this Bria Chadashah, this metamorphosis that will bring B'ezrat Hashem, Mashiach Tzidkenu, B'mira B'yameinu. Amen.